give a little bit of background. We've known each other for a few years through a common friend, Gary. You're both from Cleveland, and before I knew you, and when I met him in film school, he was telling me that he was in a band back in the day, and that he knew the best bass player that ever lived. And and I was, well, what's his name? And he said, well, it's Darren Frate. And I love jazz, I love music, and I thought, I've never heard that name before. How could the best player in the world not be known?
That's his words, not mine, right?
Yeah, his words, of course. But he said, no, you don't understand. He's unbelievable. And I got to know you through him. I got to know your music through him. And I have to say, he's not far off. Your ability to find melody where there is none is just incredible. So I want, and I'm privileged and I'm honored to be able to introduce you to hopefully a new audience. And thank you for doing this today.
Sure. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about those beginnings in Cleveland, first getting a bass in your hand. Who put that there, and why did that happen?
Probably around, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old. Um, me and my friend, Dan Stock, who has since passed away, we were rummaging through my mom's attic. And my uncle, my mom's brother, was in a group called the James Gang, a rock group from the 70s. Joe Walsh, Funk 49 was their big hit. Walk Away. They had numerous hits, but so from touring and stuff, he needed a spot to store some of his equipment. So our attic was that spot for a while. So me and my friend were going up in the attic, just looking around, and we see a case. So we open it up, and it's a bass guitar, and we're like, wow, what, no aspirations to play music before that, nothing.
That sounds like a scene from the Goonies.
Yeah, it's like, or The Natural. You open the bat, Wonder Boy, but absolutely no aspirations to play music before that. So we open it up, and there's a little like broken down amplifier too. So we take it out and we start fooling around with it, and we come up to this conclusion: hey, let's start a band. None of us knew how to play any instruments, nothing, but it sounded like a good idea. And we were going to have a band with two bass players because we both found the bass. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to play bass too. He actually went to guitar, but I kept playing the bass. I kept pretty much self-taught on my own. I'd listen to records and things and pick out bass lines, try to teach myself, ask my uncle some questions along the way. And then our mutual friend Gary, we were talking about, already played piano and stuff like that. So when we were in 8th grade, we had this idea: hey, let's start a band, and we'll get a couple other people from school that play, and we'll start a band. And the big event was there was we went to Catholic school, and there was a priest's jubilee or something. So there was going to be a big concert presentation at the school. So we're like, yeah, let's practice. We're going to play for that. So that was our goal, to play from that. So it just kind of, it started from there. We were more into rock music back then, like regular, like old, maybe 60s British rock. The Who was one of our big loves back then. And then, as high school went on, you start listening to other music and start getting into other things. But, along the way, I would practice feverishly every day. I couldn't wait to get home from school and just practice.
Completely self-taught.
Yeah, up until that point, yeah. I just from listening to music, learning bass lines, learning melodies and stuff like that. But it was retrospect. It was mainly easy songs, 3-chord rock songs, but you learn how to kind of get around the instrument that way.
And what year is this?
No, I mean, like early 80s we started.
Early 80s. So that means that your equipment, not your bass equipment, but the practicing equipment to play alongside songs is cassette tapes.
It's records, drop the needle, wear out the record. And, the bass that I did find up in the attic, my mom's attic, was like a broken down, impossible to play. I didn't know. The strings were like 3 inches off the neck, but I didn't know back then. So, you would make yourself struggle to play it. But I think maybe I kept up with it. So maybe a year later or so, for Christmas, my uncle gave my mom and dad an actual good bass, Fender Jazz bass, to give to me for Christmas that he had. So, which is the bass I still play today.
Is it?
Yeah. So that kind of like, it was so much easier to play, and it felt like home. Like that's my instrument. Which
Obviously it's a 4-string.
Yeah, it was for back then too. Nobody had 5.
Nobody had 12-string basses back then.
Yeah, exactly. There was nothing like that. But so so during high school, me and our friend Gary, again, we're in a band with my brother and a couple other friends, and we started writing our own music to go along with cover songs that we play. And at that point, it got to the point where it's like I don't really want to play cover music anymore.
Yeah,
I just do my own type of music.
So isn't there a point in every young musician's life? There's always a point in which you start to butt against your own musical limits, and whatever you can do yourself ends because you don't have a teacher. You don't know really how to do it. Did that happen for you? When did that happen for you? And what did you do about it?
I think when that point happened, I could play pretty well, but I couldn't communicate what I was playing. Like if I was playing with you, I couldn't say, well, I'm going to a D flat 7, and then it goes to G major, G flat major, whatever. I couldn't tell you that. I could play it, and if you played that, I could follow you, but I couldn't communicate what I was playing. So that started to get, and you could learn, you could learn some of that on your own and all that. But so after high school, I wanted to go to music school. To study music and to do that more, but that was my father passed away like my freshman year of what would have been freshman year of college. So I kind of off and on went to school, wasn't really focused on anything. I didn't go to music school. I just kind of went because you had to go to college. That's what you did. So after that, I decided, I'm going to do this. And so I applied to get into the Berklee College of Music, which I did. And, that was a real eye opener because, like I said, I thought I could play, which I really couldn't. I mean, I could, but I couldn't. When I got there, I was like, I was pretty much one of the best people where I was from. When I got there, I was not one of the best musicians. It was a real eye opener, how much I really had to learn.
In order to transition from merely playing an instrument to being a musician, there's 2 parts to this. One, there's of course the teaching, what you're being taught, but there's also the community to be amongst people like you. What do you think is the balance between those two to achieve to achieve that transition from merely playing an instrument to being a musician?
It's probably, I'd say teaching is a big part, maybe like 35-40%, but being around other musicians and playing and learn, back in the 20s and 30s, whatever, the beginning of music, they didn't have, you learned by being on the bandstand and you sink or swim, or you ask someone older than you, hey, why did you play that there? What is that? How is that related to that chord? Or how is that related to this song? How that you played that. So by being around other musicians that maybe have more knowledge than you do, you start picking that up. word of mouth. And then you can go back to the teachers and say, hey, what is, I learned this from him yesterday. Why does this work? Why is this? And I have to say, at Berkeley, there were so many teachers that were so open to, like, that they loved teaching. There wasn't that many that I came across. There was, when I first got there, like I said, I couldn't communicate music at all. So the first couple of months, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to come home at Christmas. I'm not coming back, And I remember there was one teacher named Les Harris, who was a drummer. He was probably in his 70s. And on his lunch break every day, he would have tutoring sessions. So you could go to this classroom. He would eat lunch and tutor you in different things like ear training and harmony and stuff like that. That was like, I went there every day for like 3 months because it really helped. And he was so cool. And that was kind of like, okay, this guy doesn't have to be doing this, but he is. So
yeah, I had a friend who was there for guitar playing, and he was being taught by Pat Martino. And he thought, this isn't. It's like being taught by a legend.
I know a lot of people if they go to Berkeley or other music schools, a lot of them don't stay the full time. They either get a gig and they go, or their ability is beyond what they need to be there for at a certain point. So
yeah. Now you spoke earlier about not being able to communicate in the early days, to communicate through language. About the name of the chord progressions that you had to do, or that you were jamming with other people with. But that brings up the notion of communication and what music does, not in terms of the theory of it, but in terms of what it means to you to play an instrument almost as a foreign language, right? Be able to express things that you can't say with English or any language that you happen to speak.
yeah.
When did that process occur to you? Was it a long, stretched out process in which you realized that music was not merely entertainment? Did this happen in school? Did this happen before? Was it a light bulb moment, or is it something that developed over time?
I think it develops over time. At first you're just trying to play the right notes and play,
Right.
like not make a fool out of yourself. That's my biggest fear, that somebody's going to find out I really don't know what I'm doing. Like every day it's like, he can't play. What's he doing up there? Yeah, I think it's over time. You start playing with other musicians, becomes easier. You start relating because a lot of musicians are the same in a certain sense, that their lifestyles are similar. Most people. I don't know a lot of people that love to practice, but you have to to certain extent. I kind of feel guilty if I don't. Like I have to keep playing just so you're part of the whole instrument and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just develops over time.
Mm.
And it becomes easier. You can once you learn how to communicate, you can do it very quickly, and everybody knows if they know that same language, it's very easy. You don't say much. You could hold up. We're going 2/5 to 1. They know. Key of F. They know exactly what you're talking about. You don't have to say, okay, now we're going to go to G minor 7, then we're going to play. They know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, let's talk about those specific languages, because there's the language of rock, which is how you were introduced to music.
Yeah.
And then you slowly, let's fast forward a bit, you slowly went to another kind of language. What attracted you to jazz, or maybe more to the point, who attracted you to transition to another form of language?
Probably just eventually your tastes change and you start listening to other music, and you go, and something grabs you and you go, because most rock. I mean, there's phenomenal players, but it's in a certain sense it's very repetitive, and there's similar chord. You know, not that jazz doesn't have similar chord changes, but it's just very repetitive and almost limiting in some ways. So when you start checking out different music and different players, you see it's like, oh, you can do that. You know, you can do that on a bass, or you can, you don't have to play the song the same way every time. I mean, you're not going to ever hear a jazz player play the same solo every time or the same, it's freeing. It's very liberating. You can really, your personality comes out. I mean, you can hear some people, you hear three notes and you know exactly who that player is. You just know it. Their personality is how they play.
Was there an album? Was there a player at the beginning?
I think like as far as bass, and I don't really play anything like him or anything like that, but Stanley Clarke was like the first guys like that really had dexterity that I listened to. I didn't even listen to Jaco Pastorius yet, but Stanley Clarke first, and then that led me to Jaco, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? It's like you want to throw away the instrument. You're like,
Yeah.
Yourself a bass player.
Most people wonder, my God, what is this when they listen to Jaco?
Yeah. So that, you start learning some of how he plays and stuff like that. And then you go, okay, I can actually kind of do this. And then that leads you to somebody else. And that leads you to it's just like everything, you're when you're 10, your tastes are one way. When you're 30, your tastes are, dramatically different. Hopefully you've progressed, So it's just that checking out different, I've always been an electric player. I just recently started playing upright, something I always wanted to do, but I never did. So for about a year, I've been playing. I haven't played anywhere, obviously, with the pandemic and everything. I haven't played out anywhere with it, but I'd love to start incorporating that into.
Now we're fast forwarding to the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s. Now you're an adult. You're a young adult, and you're thinking about, okay, how do I turn this hobby? How do I turn this passion? How do I turn this skill into a job? How does that go?
I think like most musicians, you either teach lessons. That's always, even the guys at Berkeley, one of their main gigs was they taught lessons. I think every musician does that at some point. But a lot of people, you join a local band, you play weddings, a lot of people make a living doing that. That was just never my thing. That wasn't my thing. But I sort of fell into a friend of mine from Cleveland was in a band, a touring band that used to back up oldies artists from the 60s and 70s. The might have the original lead singer, might have the second guitar player, but they own the name, so it could be anybody. So they used to back up these artists, and they would travel all over the country, sometimes overseas, and play shows. So their bass player had a problem one time. He left or something. They asked me if I could fill in on one of the gigs. So I did, and then eventually I started playing more. And so I sort of got into that. Like, okay, I'm making some decent money. It wasn't really the music I liked. It wasn't something I would have listened to on my own, but I could appreciate it. And obviously you do your best when you're playing. And it was I wound up doing that for about 10 years with various. I started playing with Gary Lewis and the Playboys. This Diamond Ring was the big hit.
Yeah.
And a lot of these artists didn't have enough songs people would know to do a full show, so they would have about 4 artists on the show for 2 hours. They'd each do 20 minutes. Somebody would do, longer maybe. So we would be the backup band essentially for all these artists. So you most of these songs I never heard in my life. But like I said, you get to appreciate them.
For sure. And the amazing thing about an instrument, about a musician, and especially a portable musician, unlike, let's say, a keyboard player who has to log something pretty heavy and needs a whole setup of speakers and all that kind of stuff. Uh, in the lull, you're practicing, you're refining your own voice. You're doing something to put bread on the table and get some time out there on the circuit.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at night you're plotting, you are refining, you are punching up your musical vocabulary by listening to the things you do love, and it makes you a better player eventually.
Yeah. If you use that time wisely, yeah, it could very easily be something where you just kind of fall into a rut and you sit in a hotel room and you do nothing, go to the gig, come back, do nothing, leave. Okay, I'm by myself. I can work on things if I want to. All that.
So, from that time where you found Wonder Boy in an abandoned case, um, to 2019, where you release Resonance, your latest album, which is incredible. And how much time has passed between those 2 points?
I'm always writing my own material. Um, some of it, some of it I recorded with various different groups. Maybe a few songs, two or three on an album or something. But um, where it's just exclusively all my stuff. Yeah, this was the first, and probably when I stopped doing the oldies stuff, it was probably 2010, maybe around there, or something like that. So, that time, I just said, I want to concentrate on myself. I don't want to do this. So I started trying to, it seems sad that it took 9 years to actually put out something, but it's the reality of it is, like I said, it's just thinking out, what material do you want and like hopefully I have so much material that I can, you know, you can arrange things where it's logical to be on the same release and things like that. But
Yeah, I mean, first of all, 9 years is nothing. I mean, it could take somebody 20 years to write a book, right? Or to make a movie, or to, it's not just inspiration. It's luck. It's circumstances. It's all the things that come together at any one point to make something happen. It doesn't just depend on your discipline or willingness or inspiration. There's
yeah,
also plenty of other things that have to come together for something like this to actually
that's something too. Like a lot of times you can't wait for inspiration. You have to just it's almost approach it like, the days I do have the ability to do that. It's like, I get up, I start working, working on ideas. And I mean, you can't just sit there and go, well, maybe something will come today. You got to just start doing it.
That's absolutely right. The painter Chuck Close used to say, inspiration has to find you working.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that.
I just saw a thing yesterday about Beethoven. He got up at like, I think 5:30 in the morning. He would have breakfast, start working. His day was, I think they said he worked till about 2-3 o'clock intensely. He would go for a walk, long walk. Like his day was planned every day. He kind of did the same routine. It's almost like that. You have to treat it like, okay, I'm going to the office today. Yeah. And I do, like if you're a writer or like you said, artist or anything, it's any discipline you need to put in the time.
Resonance, which you can now find on all your streaming platforms, by the way, is a compendium of kind of, ideas that have been in your drawer for a long time, or it's not the result of a session that you had with a very, focused point?
No, actually, luckily, I've had a recurring gig every Monday. It just recently it turned into once a month, but it was 4 times a month every Monday. So a lot of those ideas were things that I was working on and gave to the band that I was playing with, and we would play them and develop. Okay, so this works, this doesn't work. So a lot of it was, some of it, not all of it, but a lot of it was out of that kind of trial and error kind of thing, where you actually had a chance to play the material before recording it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the way recording is now, a lot of people put their part on, send it to the next person. I'd much rather everybody play in person. That way you can play off of each other. If you do something that inspires me to answer that or something,
that band. One thing I can't stand in today's streaming context is that we never see the back of the CD. We never see the back of the album where the liner notes and the personnel is. So give us a roll call for people who've never been to the website. A roll call of the band that plays with you on Resonance.
2 drummers, Dave Black and Neil Chastain, which I've been playing with here. A lot of the players, the saxophone players, somebody I've been playing with a long time, Dave Casper, is from Cleveland. Jacob Wynn played trumpet. Dylan Moffat was a percussion player who I love playing with. Sometimes we do some duo things where it's just me and him. The piano player was actually someone going to a music school in Cleveland. He since went to Berkeley now in Valencia, Spain. Aman Almeida, which I think he's like 20 or something, 20 years old. John Karkoziak played some guitar, and Luke Rinderknecht, it's a very hard name to pronounce, played vibes.
Well, the result is amazing, and I encourage
Thank
everybody
you.
to go listen to it, to pick it up. How successful do you feel about it?
I think for a first outing of everything I wanted to do, I said everything I wanted to say. Like I
Mm.
said, some of them I obviously could do better, um, but you know that's done. I'm always like, okay, so what's the next thing? So I have two CDs worth two discs worth of material from solo bass material that I want to put out next, which this pandemic has kind of thwarted at the moment. Um,
I was going to address that. Of course, you know, when any, especially independent musician like yourself, puts out a CD, the next step is the road, right? Is going to play live, and it's impossible to do right now. We're in the middle of COVID. We're recording this in the first half of June, and the world has been closed since March.
yeah,
And there's been probably no way for you to put the good word out.
yeah, and the disappointing thing was I had three gigs in New York City that I had booked for late March, I think early April, and of course those those got canceled. You know, it was at the time where you're like, these gigs may not happen. So but everybody's in the same boat. So it's not like it's just me. It's and especially a lot of musicians live by these gigs. So when this happened, they have no work. They have nothing.
Absolutely, and concerts, big or small, are
Nothing. You
yeah.
can't.
There's nothing, and but that's assembly, right? If the whole point of listening to music, even movies to an extent, the same thing. It's the power of communing around an art form that we're not allowed to do anymore.
Yeah, it's I know some places are opening and things like that, but personally, right now, I don't think it's fair uh, to kind of demand or hope people come out to see you and things. I can wait till it's right. Do it the right way instead of forcing something.
For sure, and I hope it's not too long. Of course, everybody stay safe, wear a mask, stay inside. It's really really important that we're all do this together.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the sad thing that a lot of people are not, which is disappointing. But
it is, but it must be frustrating for you who has you have things to say and you have music to unleash onto the world, and you can only do it through this
yeah,
medium, right?
but it's given me time to write a lot and
Yeah,
plan for the next. So in that sense, it's hopefully I'll be ready. So it's
good. That's good. That's good for all of us. Um, Tell me about a little bit about, maybe we can close with this. I'm interested always by what musicians listen to at a particular moment. The kind of music, the albums, the players, especially in the realm of the bass. And of course, you can tell me that you're listening to anyone, but um, in the realm of the bass, things have changed as of late. I remember coming up and listening to Patitucci and Wooten and Clark, of course. And we've now come into an era of Derek Hodge and Thundercat and those kinds of players, which almost hark back to an earlier time, right? To the 70s, to more fun, less academic playing. What's your take on today's scene?
well, I think a lot of it too is with Instagram and things like that. You see these incredible 45-second clips of people doing amazing things,
Yeah.
and it's perfect. And you wonder, okay, did it take them 100 times to do that? So it's not, there's so many, there's so many people that are so phenomenal now because you can see them all. The world is close. We can see everything now. So it's, every day you're amazed. You get something on a feed somewhere, and you check it out, and you're like, oh my God, this person is, and you've never heard of him, and he's
Well,
got,
and often they're like 12 years old in
yeah,
the suburbs of Sussex, England, or something, and they're grooving to some Stevie Wonder tune, and you're wondering, my God, how is this happening?
exactly. The dearth of amazing music and players is just, it's amazing. But like people I listen to, it kind of changes. I'm not sure. I don't know if I specifically listen to bass players, but like I'm a huge Pat Metheny fan. So everything, everything he puts out is different than the thing he put out before. Like that's what I'm thinking with my thing. I don't want to like sound like the last. I don't want to go back to Resonance. I want to go to something else. Whether people like it or not, whether people like Resonance or not. I don't want to repeat that if I can help it. So I've been trying to listen to like I mentioned Pat Metheny. He has some music that is just, it takes you so many places. It's like maybe a 10-minute long piece, and it has so many different avenues. It's just amazing, and the instrumentation and how everything comes together. Like I kind of aspire to get to that point where it's like, his playing aside, his writing is just, to me, it's phenomenal.
It's very honorable for you to want to follow in those footsteps, regardless of again his playing, because he, like we should all aspire to, is trying to add words to his vocabulary every time he has a new conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and the players he plays with, it's, he always says that he tries to find players that will not just play the music but add to what he's, I mean, ultimately, yeah, you don't want people to just sit there and play their thing and not, you want them to take what you've done and take it somewhere else, like, oh man, that's beyond what I would have thought of, or something. But so I listen to a lot of that. I listen to a lot of like world music. Like one of my, he's not new, but Richard Bona is a bass player and a singer. His virtuosity isn't really. He doesn't sit there playing dazzling solos that you would see. If you watch a clip of him on YouTube or something, it's like, it's amazing. But just the songs he puts out there, they're, most of them are very concise, 3.5, 4 minute long, pop song, or, but they're just same thing. There's his singing is angelic. I mean, the way he sings and plays.
Incredible. He has a piece on an Alfredo Rodriguez album. Do you know the one? And it's almost, it's tribal. It's a tribal chant that he made up on the side,
Yep.
and it almost reduces me to tears every time.
Yeah, and there's that one. I think maybe one time when I was in New York visiting Gary. I think we went to your. I forget where it was. Which place you were living in the city, but it was. I think you had that Patitucci album with all the Brazilian music, and
Yes.
which that's one of my favorites too. I mean, that's an amazing CD.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right though. Those players, while they're still phenomenal and out there, yeah, it's like a younger bunch of players are starting to come out where it's, like you said, they're going back almost to earlier music, but they're also their vocabulary on the instrument is different. They may be reaching people that wouldn't necessarily like jazz or
That's
a
right.
certain type of music, but the way they're presenting it, it's appealing to people that wouldn't even listen to it. It may, normally.
So is that appealing to you? Because I happen to love it. The direction jazz is going, and jazz has always been an evolving genre, an evolving language. But on one side of the equation, you've got the Wynton Marsalis, who needs to keep pure, and
Yeah,
he picks a fight with the Robert Glasper, who is taking it in the on the R&B road and doing new things with it. And one says of the other, what you're doing is not jazz, and the other says back, well, jazz has always been evolving. Evolve with it.
yeah.
Where do you have a hill you want to die on in this conversation?
I tend to go to the Robert Glasper side. I and that's the thing too. Like you were saying, Robert Glasper could play traditional jazz if
And he
he,
did.
there's plenty of things where he does that. If he wants to be that, he can. Like you were saying, he knows the history. He knows where it's coming from. He's not just, there's people that don't know anything about it and they do their thing and they say, well, jazz is about, it's new, it's doing your own thing and everything, but they have no idea what came before. So they don't think they need to know that. But he did. That's how they evolved. Look at Miles Davis. He never, after a certain point, he never played traditional jazz anymore. He wouldn't do it because he already did it.
He went even further. Not only did he never record in a style he had recorded before, but he even refused to play it.
He kept going. It's like he's like, why should I do that? I've already done it. I don't want to repeat. I don't want to repeat myself, which is admirable because people wanted him so badly to play. They wanted to hear him do that, but he wouldn't do it.
He was the template for leaving it all behind. You often hear. Well, I used to hear about this in comedy. There are the comedians who try to perfect their set. They have their 45 minutes and they go on the road and they just perfect and keep the good jokes.
Yeah.
And then there's the George Carlin school of, once you've done that set well, you trash it and you start a new one.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I love about jazz and that type of music. It's like you see an artist and you go back for the second set. They play 2 sets a night. You go back for the second set, they may play the same songs. It's nothing like you heard it the first set.
Yeah.
Which is that's how it should be. I mean, there's melodies you need to play and things like that, but they just go beyond that. I mean, that's what music's about. It's always growing and getting past.
Yeah.
If you're not taking risks, then it's, to me, I mean, that's just my thing.
And that's a perfect way to sum up your new album, Resonance, which is out now. It's an album on which you take risks, in which we can hear your musical vocabulary, in which we can hear your understanding of the history that came before and what you did with it. And I encourage everybody to pick it up because it's absolutely a brilliant work. And I hope it's just the first of many new things that we'll be hearing from you in the very near future, thanks to, in part, to this forced lockdown.
Right, yeah.
Fantastic. Please pick up Resonance on Spotify, Apple Music, or everywhere you get quality streams.
I sell them out of the back of my car too, if you want.
And the back of his car in Cleveland.
Wear a mask.
Have fun with that. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.